Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our politics panel on Nathan Cooper's new diplomatic role beyond the legislature. But first, what's to come of an actual referendum on separation?
I don't have answers to those questions because until we see an actual active question and an active petition campaign, it really is just hypothetical.
Well, Premier Smith says she doesn't want Alberta to leave Canada. She will put the issue of separation to a referendum if enough residents of the province sign a petition in support. It's a move that's not only driving considerable debate, but also prompting questions around the realities of such a scenario. Joining us now, Jared Wesley, Professor of Political Science at the University of Alberta. Jared, good to see you again, sir. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, let's start with what we heard there from the Premier. Is it just that, a hypothetical? How far down the road do you think we actually are to a referendum on separation?
Well, I think the folks that put some pressure on the government and approached the Premier's office to lower the thresholds for the referendum and definitely have, or lower the thresholds for a citizen plebiscite, have definitely been thinking about this for a while. My sense is that similar folks were involved in the attempt to recall Mayor Gondek in Calgary, and they encountered some challenges around that. And so they've come prepared with ways to clear the path towards a citizens' initiative and eventually a referendum. And I think we should all, as Albertans, be prepared for such a vote as early as next year.
Well, and now, as Albertans saw with the recent rally at the legislature, there are some pretty motivated Albertans keen on pushing this forward, maybe even a degree of organization with now active canvassing, campaigning, getting behind it. How public and engaged a discussion do you see this developing into for all of Albertans?
Yeah. Our Common Ground team was actually on the ground at that independence rally at the legislature last weekend. And I can say it's so far the usual suspects that are involved in the on the ground campaign for the separatist movement. And there's not a sense at this stage, at least from the outside, that there is one particular leader or one particular group that is in the lead in terms of gathering eventual signatures or even developing the question that would appear on the petition. And when we talked with a lot of the rally goers, that was their biggest question: is who's leading this thing? There was a sense that some of the usual, the folks that have got YouTube channels and podcasts that are devoted to this stuff are definitely the public or entertainment champions of the movement, but there's still not a sense of who's got the organizing capacity to do this. And most movements require both political leadership, in other words, providing some legitimacy and normalcy or normalization of the movement. And usually that political leadership comes out of an established political party, somebody who's either currently in that party or has a previous experience in that realm. And we still haven't seen anyone in particular step up into that role yet. And when it comes to the grassroots organizing, the right and the far right in Alberta is a very fragmented movement. And I'm not saying that disparagingly, it's just the reality of folks that travel in those circles is they don't particularly like hierarchical structures and they don't like being told what to do. And so at this stage, it's still unclear who's going to emerge to lead it either politically or organizationally.
Yeah, maybe under that heading of hypotheticals, in terms of considerations for life in Alberta post-separation, how would you paint that picture for someone gung-ho to see this happen? What might it look like for everything from currency to healthcare, social services, taxation, a list that goes on and on and on?
Yeah, I think we jump right to what would happen if the vote was positive, and most constitutional scholars are weighing in and saying that a positive vote does not necessarily mean immediate separation, right? There's a lot of steps that have to happen after that point. I guess I would challenge folks that are thinking about organizing a separation campaign to think even more close to the present day and ask, what impact will this conversation itself have on the Alberta community and society in terms of polarizing us further into, in this case, yes or no camps that will fall somewhat along left versus right lines and federalists versus separatists and so on. And then also the impact that these discussions are going to have on the Alberta economy specifically, but the Canadian economy more broadly, right? I mean, we know this from Brexit, but we also know it from the 1995 Quebec referendum that investors who we require in order to continue to move our economy forward don't like instability and they don't like uncertainty. And there's nothing more uncertain than if one province is openly discussing whether to leave the country or not. So I think we spend a lot of time talking about what are the economic and social benefits of separation down the road. We have to ask ourselves, what are the costs of it in the short term, and is it worth it?
Okay, so let's say a citizen-led initiative leads to a referendum, a plebiscite on separation in 2026. What will hinge on how the question is worded, how that question is formulated?
Yeah, and I don't know if the Premier meant to leave this kind of hanging up in the air, so it really depends on what the question is. When it comes to referendums, her government will determine what that question will look like. She has to, table that question and not just in the Alberta legislature, but if she wants to follow the letter of the law as passed down by the Supreme Court of Canada and then through the Clarity Act, she's going to actually have to table that question in Parliament, because Parliament must decide whether that question is clear enough to provide a substantive outcome if the vote takes place. So the Premier has said that that question will respect treaty rights. The question is, well, how do you incorporate that into a straightforward question, right? Then there's all kinds of questions as to, is this a straight up Alberta is going to form an independent country? Is this something like Alberta will seek to be annexed or seek to join the United States as a 51st state? So there's a lot riding on this question. And quite frankly, the separatist movement itself hasn't sorted those things out. There are folks that we saw at the rally that are proudly flying American flags or American/Alberta flags, and other folks that we interviewed that go, I have no intention of being part of the United States. I want Alberta to be a free and independent country. So there are a lot of questions about the question.
All right, we maybe about 30 seconds left. The Premier said it's her job to ensure that it doesn't get to a yes. So how challenging will it be for Danielle Smith, the UCP government, to navigate the political dynamic that appears to be unfolding here?
Well, she shouldn't ask me. She should probably ask how that went for David Cameron, who started the UK down the path towards Brexit and had one outcome in mind. In this case, the same that the Premier does. Like she seems to think that Albertans will want to remain within Confederation, and sounds like she might take a leadership role in that no side. I'm not sure what that looks like, but soon she'll find out that referendums take on a life of their own. And that she may not be in control of the movement that she seems to be clearing the path for right now.
All right, we'll have to leave it there for time. Appreciate your time as always, Jared. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Jared Wesley is a professor of political science at the University of Alberta.